obviously made some mistakes and they went over the fence. So that was kind of the difference in the game. But yeah, overall, it's good to get deep into the game. And there were some positive things, but yeah, the mistakes tonight found a way over the fence, unfortunately.
I want Madison Bumgarner on my mound. And that may seem like a crazy and outrageous position to take, considering that Clayton Kershaw just had arguably the greatest regular season we've ever witnessed a pitcher have.
2 balls and a strike. Gomez the tying run at third. Correa's at first. And a steal of the plate, and he is out at the plate.
Just battling with him. Like I mentioned earlier, he's one of the best of all time, and that guy definitely brings the best out of you.
I am Mason, and this is Baseball Icons. Clayton Kershaw, the gentleman lefty with the church boy smile and 3 Cy Young trophies, just dropped a line that made every baseball fan's jaw hit the floor. I hate his guts. Those 4 words, aimed at a specific group of players, tore the mask off one of the sport's nicest guys and revealed something darker underneath. For nearly 2 decades, Kershaw has been sold to us as the humble superstar who lets his pitching do the talking. But peel back the layers and you will find a man who keeps receipts. A pitcher who remembers every slight, every celebration that went too long, every bat flip that felt like disrespect. And now, as his career winds down, the grudges are bubbling to the surface. This is not just a list of rivals. This is a catalog of hate, bitterness, and unfinished business. Why would the nicest superstar pitcher keep a list like this? The answer came in late 2024 when Kershaw was asked to rank the best 1-2 punches he had faced in his career. When the names Jose Altuve and Alex Bregman came up, his tone shifted. He paused. Then he said something that sent shockwaves through the baseball world. It is hard to rank them among the best in a normal way, he admitted, because they cheated. That single sentence ripped open a wound that never healed. The 2017 World Series, the sign-stealing scandal, the ambiguity that still hangs over his legacy like a storm cloud. And here is what makes it worse. Kershaw did not just say it once and move on. He kept going. He talked about how the lack of remorse from those players made it impossible for him to move forward. He used the word interesting to describe their response, or lack of response, to the scandal. And anyone who knows Kershaw knows that when he calls something interesting, he really means it is unforgivable. This was not a casual interview answer. This was a man who had been holding his tongue for 7 years, finally letting the truth spill out. If you want to see more deep dives like this one, hit that hype button right now and give hype to this video so more fans can see the truth about baseball's biggest grudges. But before we get to the Astros, the names at the very top of Kershaw's hate list, we need to understand how a man who grew up idolizing Sandy Koufax and preaching respect for the game became someone who openly despises specific people. And to do that, we have to count down through the full roster of enemies. 7 names, 7 clashes, 7 reasons why Clayton Kershaw is not the saint you think he is. Let's start at the bottom and work our way up. Number 7, the ghost he cannot escape. Sandy Koufax. Yes, you read that right. Kershaw's mentor, the man he calls a friend, the legend whose shadow he has lived under for his entire career. And that is exactly the problem. Because no matter how many strikeouts Kershaw racks up, no matter how many Cy Youngs he wins, he will always be measured against a version of Sandy Koufax that barely exists outside of myth. Kershaw hates this. He has said it out loud. He is frustrated with the media's myth-making about the 1960s. He wants to be judged on his own era, not constantly compared to the 1966 version of Koufax. And who can blame him? The workloads are not even close. Koufax threw 115 complete games during his 6-year peak. Kershaw threw 19. The game changed. Pitch counts became a thing, bullpens evolved, but the media does not care. They just keep asking the same question, is Kershaw the next Koufax? And every time they ask it, they are really saying you are not good enough yet. The numbers are almost identical. Koufax had a 2.19 ERA during his dominant stretch. Kershaw had 2.33. Koufax posted an ERA plus of 156. Kershaw posted 160, which actually means he was better relative to his league. Their WHIP numbers are nearly the same. So why does Koufax get treated like a god, while Kershaw gets treated like a guy who still needs to prove himself? Because Koufax retired at the peak and never had to face the decline. He never lost velocity, he never got lit up in October. He quit while the legend was still perfect. Kershaw kept playing, and every year he stayed, the mythology got harder to match. He has called the Koufax comparison the biggest honor of his life. But honors can feel like burdens when they come with impossible expectations. And this one followed him everywhere. Every time he gave up a home run, someone on Twitter said Koufax never would have thrown that pitch. Every time he lost in the playoffs, the same voices said Koufax owned October. It did not matter that Koufax only pitched in 8 playoff games total. The myth was stronger than the math. And Kershaw, proud and stubborn, started to resent it. Not Koufax himself, but the weight of being the next anyone. He wanted to be his own man. He wanted his name to stand alone. But baseball does not work that way. Legends get compared, And Kershaw, no matter how much he fights it, will always be the guy who came closest to matching Sandy Koufax. That closeness is what eats at him, because close is never enough. The irony is brutal. Koufax is genuinely in his corner. They talk, they hang out. Koufax has been nothing but supportive. But that almost makes it worse, because Kershaw cannot even get mad at the man himself. He can only be mad at the comparison, at the media, at the fans who refuse to let him be his own person. And that kind of frustration, the kind with no clear target, is the most toxic of all. Number 6. The narrative villain, Max Kellerman. If Koufax represents the pressure from history, Max Kellerman represents the pressure from the present. Kellerman, the loudmouth analyst on ESPN's First Take, made a career out of one specific take. Clayton Kershaw is a postseason choker. He said it over and over and over. He turned it into a brand. And for years, Dodgers fans and Kershaw's teammates had to sit there and listen to it. Kellerman's argument was simple. Look at the numbers. Kershaw's playoff ERA sat at 4.62. His regular season ERA was 2.53. The gap was too big to ignore. And Kellerman did not just point at the overall stats. He went game by game. He pulled up Game 1 of the 2018 World Series and called it another nail in the coffin for Kershaw's legacy. He said Kershaw could not handle the bright lights. That, when the stakes got highest, he crumbled. The worst part? For a long time, it looked like Kellerman was right. Kershaw kept losing big games. He kept giving up home runs at the worst moments. And every time it happened, Kellerman was there on national television, reminding everyone that he called it. This was not just criticism, this was branding. Kellerman turned Kershaw into a punchline, and it worked. Casual fans who did not watch every game started repeating the same line. Great in the regular season, trash in October. Kershaw does not talk about media guys often. He usually brushes off criticism with a smile and a polite non-answer. But people close to him said Kellerman got under his skin. Because Kellerman was not just wrong. He was ignoring context. He ignored the inherited runners that Kershaw got charged with. He ignored the fact that the Astros cheated against him in 2017. Skewing his playoff numbers even further. He ignored the reality that baseball is a team sport, and Kershaw's offense disappeared in huge moments too. But Kellerman did not care about nuance. He cared about hot takes, and the choker narrative was the hottest take of the 2000s. What made it personal was how Kellerman doubled down. Even when fans and analysts pointed out the flaws in his argument, he refused to budge. He kept hammering the same point, and that stubbornness turned him from a critic into an enemy. Because criticism is fine. Every athlete deals with it. But when someone builds their entire brand around tearing you down, ignoring all evidence to the contrary, it stops being analysis and starts being a personal attack. It only ended in 2020 when the Dodgers finally won the World Series. Kershaw pitched well in that postseason. Not perfect, but good enough. And when the final out was recorded, the first thing Dodgers fans did was flood Kellerman's mentions. The choker label died that night. But for Kershaw, the damage was done. Years of his prime were spent fighting a media-constructed narrative that never should have existed. And he remembers. He might not say Kellerman's name out loud, but he has not forgotten. Number 5. The New School Disrespect, Fernando Tatis Jr. This one is generational. Tatis represents everything Kershaw does not understand about modern baseball. The flash, the flare, the celebrations, the shush gesture. In the era of let the kids play, Tatis became the poster boy for a new kind of baseball personality. Loud, confident, unapologetic. And when he faced Kershaw, he did not show an ounce of fear. He homered off the great Clayton Kershaw and then put his finger to his lips, shushing the Dodgers dugout. That moment went viral instantly. Young fans loved it. They said Tatis was bringing energy to a boring sport. But for Kershaw, it felt like a slap in the face, because Kershaw grew up in a different baseball culture, the Dodger way, the old school way. You act like you have been there before. You do not show up your opponent. You respect the game. And when a 22-year-old kid treats you like a batting practice pitcher and celebrates like he just won the World Series, it stings, especially when you have spent your whole career being compared to Sandy Koufax, the most dignified player to ever wear a Dodger uniform. Kershaw has softened his stance on celebrations in recent years. He has admitted that the sport needs energy and personality, but that does not mean he liked it when it happened to him. The Tatis shush was personal. It said, "I am not scared of you." It said, "Your reputation does not matter to me." And for a guy like Kershaw, who built his career on commanding respect through excellence, that kind of disrespect is unforgivable. The generational clash is real. Kershaw represents the last generation of players who believed in unwritten rules and quiet dominance. Tatis represents a generation that thinks those rules are outdated and boring. And when those two forces collide, someone always walks away angry. In this case, it was Kershaw. He might not admit it publicly, but he has not forgotten that shush, and he never will. What eats at him most is that the culture sided with Tatis. The league started promoting those celebrations. MLB used clips of bat flips and showboating in their marketing. The very thing Kershaw thought was wrong became the official brand of baseball, and that left him looking like the old man yelling at clouds, out of touch, behind the times, a relic from a game that no longer exists. That is a hard pill to swallow when you are still in your 30s and supposed to be in your prime. Number 4. The leadoff irritant. Carlos Gomez. If Tatis was the young gun who did not know any better, Carlos Gomez was the veteran who knew exactly what he was doing. Gomez built his reputation on high-energy antics, bat flips, celebrations, stare downs. He pimped home runs like they were going out of style. And for a pitcher like Kershaw, who valued control and composure, Gomez was a constant source of frustration. The breaking point came in 2014. Kershaw was in the middle of one of the most dominant seasons ever. He finished with a 1.77 ERA, leading the league. But during a game against the Brewers, Gomez stepped to the plate and everything went sideways. The umpire called a ball. Kershaw lost his mind. He started screaming at the ump, nearly getting himself ejected. Manager Don Mattingly had to step in and take the ejection himself to keep Kershaw in the game. On the surface, the anger was about the balk call, but people who watched that game said Gomez was the real trigger. His presence in the box, his energy, his refusal to play the game the way Kershaw thought it should be played. It all added up. And when the balk call came, Kershaw snapped. This was not about one moment. This was about a philosophy. Gomez believed baseball should be fun, loud, and expressive. Kershaw believed it should be disciplined, respectful, and quiet. Those two views cannot coexist peacefully. Someone has to be wrong. And in Kershaw's mind, it was Gomez. The 2014 incident became a symbol of everything Kershaw hated about the direction the sport was heading. More celebrations, more personality, less respect for the old ways. And Gomez, with his over-the-top antics, was the face of that shift. Kershaw could not stop it. The sport was changing whether he liked it or not, but he could hate the guy who embodied it, and he did. Number 3. The enforcer moment, Aaron Rowand. This is where the mask really slipped. Because up until 2010, Kershaw was known as the quiet kid with a devastating curveball, the church boy, the future ace. But in one moment, he showed a side of himself that shocked everyone: retaliation. On July 20th, 2010, the Dodgers were playing the Giants at Dodger Stadium. Earlier in the game, Giants pitcher Tim Lincecum hit Dodgers outfielder Matt Kemp with a pitch. It looked intentional, and in the 7th inning, Kershaw decided to take matters into his own hands. He drilled Aaron Rowand, on purpose, no question about it. The benches cleared, Kershaw was ejected, and a few days later he was handed a 5-game suspension. Joe Torre and bench coach Bob Schaefer got 1-game suspensions for their roles in the incident. At the time, Kershaw was just 22 years old. He was leading the National League in strikeouts per 9 innings with a rate of 9.90. The Dodgers were 6 games back of the San Diego Padres and fighting for a playoff spot. This was not the time to lose your ace for a week, but Kershaw did not care. He saw his teammate get hit and he responded the only way he knew how: old school justice. The incident became a rallying point for the Dodgers. For years they had been called soft, too nice, too willing to let the Giants push them around. But when Kershaw threw that pitch, he sent a message: we protect our own. The problem? It also revealed something darker. Kershaw, the nice guy, was willing to play judge and jury. He decided Lincecum's pitch was dirty. He decided Rowand deserved to pay for it. And he took action without hesitation. That kind of certainty can be admirable, or it can be arrogant. And in Kershaw's case, it felt like both. The enforcer side of Kershaw does not show up often, but when it does, it is intense. And it proves that underneath the calm exterior, there is a guy who holds grudges and believes in his own version of justice, even if it costs him games, even if it hurts his team. Because in his mind, some things are more important than winning, like respect, like loyalty, like making sure the other side knows you will not be pushed around. Aaron Rowand probably does not think about that pitch anymore, but Kershaw does, because it was the moment he proved he was not just a soft-throwing lefty. He was a competitor who would do whatever it took to defend his guys, even if it meant crossing the line. And once you cross that line, you can never fully go back. The image of the nice guy gets a crack in it, and people start wondering what else you are capable of when you get pushed too far. Number 2, the left-handed mirror, Madison Bumgarner. If the Astros represent toxic hate and Rowand represents enforcer rage, Bumgarner represents something more complicated: respect mixed with resentment, admiration mixed with frustration. For over a decade, Bumgarner was Kershaw's equal and opposite: another dominant lefty, another ace, another guy who carried his team on his back in October. But where Kershaw struggled in the playoffs, Bumgarner thrived, and that contrast defined their rivalry. The Dodgers-Giants matchups were legendary. Low-scoring battles, 1-0 games, 2-1 nail-biters. Every pitch mattered. Every at-bat felt like a fight. And when Kershaw and Bumgarner faced each other, it was must-see television. But here's the thing that ate at Kershaw: Bumgarner did not just beat him on the mound, he beat him at the plate. Bumgarner is the only pitcher to ever hit 2 home runs off Clayton Kershaw. 2. That is not luck. That is dominance. And for a guy like Kershaw who prides himself on being the best at everything, getting owned by another pitcher is humiliating. He admitted it forced him to pitch differently to Bumgarner over time. He could not just throw his normal stuff. He had to adjust. That is respect. But it is also resentment, because adjusting means admitting the other guy figured you out. Despite the rivalry, they were friends. They chatted before series. They were all-star teammates multiple times. Bumgarner even named his strongest horse after Clayton Kershaw. That gesture said everything. Game recognized game. But friendship does not erase competition, and competition does not erase bitterness. The 2019 farewell was the moment the world saw how deep the respect ran. It was Bumgarner's last game as a Giant. Kershaw knew it. So in the middle of the game, he called a mound visit for no reason other than to give the San Francisco crowd extra time to give Bumgarner a standing ovation. Then, in Bumgarner's final at-bat, Kershaw threw him 7 straight fastballs. Man against man. No tricks. No curveballs. Just strength against strength. It was beautiful. It was honorable. And it proved that, even in a rivalry built on mutual dislike, there can be something pure. But do not mistake that gesture for forgiveness. Kershaw still hates that Bumgarner hit 2 homers off him. He still hates that Bumgarner won 3 World Series while Kershaw kept failing in October. He still hates that when people compare the two, Bumgarner's postseason heroics always tip the scale. The rivalry was healthy, but healthy does not mean painless, and Kershaw carries those scars. The worst part is that Bumgarner never gloated. He never rubbed it in. He just kept beating Kershaw in the ways that mattered most. And somehow that made it worse. Because if Bumgarner had been a jerk about it, Kershaw could hate him cleanly. But Bumgarner was respectful, classy, which meant Kershaw had to respect him back even while resenting everything he represented. That is the kind of rivalry that leaves permanent marks. Number 1, the core trauma. Jose Altuve, Alex Bregman, and Carlos Correa. This is it, the big one, the grudge that will never die. The 2017 Houston Astros, the sign-stealing scandal, the lack of apologies, the ambiguity that destroyed Kershaw's legacy. Game 5 of the 2017 World Series at Minute Maid Park. Kershaw gave up 6 runs in 4 2/3 innings. The Dodgers lost 13-12 in extra innings. At the time, it looked like another classic Kershaw choke job. He blew multiple leads. He could not get out of the 5th. The narrative wrote itself. But then the scandal broke. The Astros had been using a sophisticated system to steal signs. They banged on trash cans to signal what pitch was coming. And suddenly, everything changed. Kershaw's performance was not just a failure anymore, it was potentially a rigged game. The statistical anomaly was impossible to ignore. The Astros hitters stayed weirdly disciplined against Kershaw's breaking balls. Balls that usually got swung at ended up being laid off with perfect timing. In that game, the Astros did not swing at a single Kershaw breaking ball that ended up out of the strike zone. Not one. For an elite pitcher, that statistic is not just improbable. It is impossible, unless they knew what was coming. Kershaw's entire arsenal is built on deception. The high 90s fastball in his early career dropped to mid-90s at his peak. The devastating 12-6 curveball that drops off the table. The hard slider in the high 80s. All 3 pitches work because hitters have to guess. They have to commit to a swing before they know what is coming. But if you remove the guessing, if you give the hitter advanced knowledge, the whole thing falls apart. The mechanical perfection Kershaw spent thousands of hours building becomes irrelevant. And that is exactly what happened in Game 5. The Astros laid off pitches that should have been swung at. They crushed pitches that should have been impossible to hit. And Kershaw, the perfectionist, the guy who controls every variable he can, was left wondering if any of it mattered. That is the ambiguity Kershaw talks about. Did he fail on his own, or did he get cheated? The answer matters, because if he failed, it is on him. He has to live with it. But if he got cheated, his legacy was stolen. And the people who stole it have never apologized. Jose Altuve, the face of the Astros franchise, issued a vague non-apology that satisfied no one. Alex Bregman did the same. Carlos Correa went the opposite direction and defended the title, saying they earned it. That defiance is what Kershaw cannot forgive. He described the lack of remorse as interesting. That one word carries so much weight. Interesting. Not outrageous, not unforgivable, interesting, like he is watching a psychology experiment, like he cannot believe human beings could be this shameless. In late 2024, Kershaw was asked to rank the best 1-2 punches he had faced. When Altuve and Bregman came up, he said it was hard to rank them among the best because they cheated. That is not a hot take. That is a fact. But it is also deeply personal, because every time someone asks him about that World Series, he has to relive the ambiguity. He has to wonder if his curveball was not good enough, or if they just knew it was coming. And that ambiguity is a permanent stain. The contrast with Bumgarner makes it worse. Bumgarner beat Kershaw through familiarity and physical strength. He studied Kershaw's delivery. He worked on his timing. He earned those home runs. But the Astros did not earn anything. They cheated, and then they refused to own it. That is what makes this toxic instead of just competitive. In a fair fight, Kershaw can live with losing. He respects guys who beat him the right way. But when the fight is rigged and the other side pretends it was fair, that is when respect turns to hate. The 2020 World Series title answered some questions. Kershaw finally got his ring. He finally silenced the choker label, but it did not erase 2017. It did not make the Astros apologize, and it did not remove the shadow hanging over his peak years. If anything, the 2020 title made 2017 hurt more. Because now Kershaw knows he was good enough. He knows he could have won in 2017 if the playing field had been level, but he will never know for sure. And that uncertainty, that ambiguity, will haunt him forever. Altuve, Bregman, and Correa are talented. Kershaw admitted that. But talent does not erase cheating. And cheating does not get forgiven without remorse. The Astros gave him neither. They kept their title, they kept their bonuses, they kept their legacy, and Kershaw is stuck holding the ambiguity. That is why they are number one. Because this is not just a rivalry, this is a betrayal, a theft, a wound that will never heal. And every time Kershaw sees their names, he is reminded that the greatest moment of his career might have been stolen from him by people who will never admit what they did. The worst part is that baseball moved on. The league barely punished anyone. Fans stopped caring after a few months. The Astros kept winning. And Kershaw was left alone with his anger, watching the people who wronged him get celebrated while he got called a choker. So where does that leave us? 7 names, 7 grudges, 7 pieces of unfinished business. Clayton Kershaw is not the saint the media sold you. He is a man who keeps receipts, who holds grudges, who lets old wounds fester instead of healing. The Koufax comparisons frustrated him. Kellerman's choker label haunted him. Tatis disrespected him. Gomez annoyed him. Rowand became his enforcer moment. Bumgarner beat him in ways that still sting. And the Astros stole something he will never get back. The 2020 title changed the narrative. It proved he could win when it mattered. But it did not erase the hate. It did not make him forget. And it did not turn him into the forgiving legend everyone wants him to be. Because Kershaw is not built that way. He is stubborn, he is proud, he believes in fairness and respect and playing the game the right way. And when those values get violated, he does not just move on. He remembers. The irony? That stubbornness is what made him great. The same fire that fuels his grudges also fueled 11 All-Star appearances and 3 Cy Young awards. The same pride that makes him resent Koufax comparisons also pushed him to match Koufax's numbers. The same loyalty that made him drill Aaron Rowand also made him the ultimate teammate. You cannot have one without the other. And maybe that is the real lesson here. Greatness comes with a cost. And for Kershaw, that cost is carrying the weight of every slight, every loss, every unanswered question. He is not perfect. He is human. And humans hold grudges. Even the ones who smile for the cameras and preach respect. Even the ones who win Cy Youngs and break records. Even the ones who are supposed to be role models. Because being a role model does not mean you stop feeling betrayed when someone cheats you. It does not mean you stop resenting unfair comparisons. It does not mean you forget when someone disrespects everything you stand for. Kershaw's a walking contradiction. The nice guy who hit a batter on purpose. The humble ace who cannot stand being compared to his mentor. The teammate protector who still hates guys from a decade ago. And that contradiction is what makes him fascinating. Because most athletes hide their grudges. They give the boring interview answers and move on. But Kershaw, in his own controlled way, lets the truth slip out. He admits he cannot rank the Astros properly because they cheated. He admits the Koufax comparisons frustrate him. He admits that some rivalries still sting even when they are supposed to be over. That honesty, even when it reveals his pettiness, is refreshing. It reminds us that these legends we put on pedestals are just people. Flawed, bitter, complicated people who happen to throw a baseball better than almost anyone who ever lived. So the next time you see Clayton Kershaw on the mound, remember this. He is not just pitching against the batter. He is pitching against every name on this list. Every ghost, every grudge, every piece of unfinished business. And that fire, that bitterness, that refusal to forget is what makes him one of the greatest to ever do it. The hate is part of the legacy. The grudges are part of the greatness. And the scars are part of what makes Clayton Kershaw unforgettable. If you made it this far, hit that like button, drop a comment telling me which grudge surprised you the most, and subscribe so you never miss another deep dive into baseball's biggest stories.